Just move this up. So thank you so much for having me. Oops, I don't want that to happen yet. Really glad to be here. It's lovely to be with all of you, sharing some of the fun stuff that we're going to be doing and how we got here. I believe it was Linda who reached out to me, she asked me specifically two things that she wanted me to talk about. One was, how did I get into the Monarch thing? And two, how did our festival come about? So I'm going to give you kind of a quick overview of that, and then we can take some questions. So as you guys have said, it's our 2020 festival this year. It's our 5th anniversary, and it's been a long road here. The way that this ended up happening, it was never something I planned. This is the Llano River here, and in about 2005, I think it was, I started to notice that we had monarch butterflies roosting on the opposite bank of the river where we have our house. And I had a friend who introduced me to all of this and invited me to tag monarch butterflies. The following year, I went looking for them, and I found that they were roosting here. And so I started really digging into this. I was reading about it, learning about it, tagging lots of butterflies, encouraging my friends to come out. And I'd say, okay, we're going on a butterfly hunt. And we would set out with our nets and go paddle the river looking for, whatever we could find. Like you'll see on the right there, that pink bloom is swamp milkweed, Asclepias incarnata. We have that growing on the Llano. It grows wild. And up until about a month ago, I think, we had tons of those beautiful pink blossoms, and then we had a big rainstorm and all the blossoms got knocked off. So that's a lot of the time, that's where I get monarch caterpillars from that I want to bring home and just have one on hand, or bring it home for a child or a friend who wants to witness the metamorphosis. So what we do is we would kayak around, get out and go look for butterflies. And crazily, in the pecan trees across the river from our bank, they roost in the evening. There's a big limestone escarpment there, and it's a very beautiful and perfect place to spend the night for them, because the limestone absorbs the heat and protects them from the wind. And then the river's right there with moisture, and that's typically where a lot of flowers are at this time of year. And as you know, if you go around right now, the one place you're going to see flowers is along a river or in a garden where someone is watering, because we've had a nice dry summer. So this is the kind of thing you would see. You would see these clusters of monarch butterflies just dripping from the branches of the pecan tree. And then, of course, you would get your net out, and you probably can't see it, but this was actually this weekend. We had this huge, I couldn't believe it. I tagged about 250 butterflies this weekend with my son and his friend, Alicia. I don't know if you can see it, but in the middle of the frame, there's like a little orange cluster, and there's probably about 50 butterflies just hanging out there waiting for the winds to shift. And so you get those butterflies in your net, you take them down and you tag them, and it's really a huge amount of fun. I don't know how many of you have ever tagged monarch butterflies or how familiar you are, but this is what it looks like. There's a sticker on there. This one, it says WMX 658, a crazy thing. I was tagging monarchs by myself, and I swooped my net, I got a couple butterflies in, and this was one of them. It had already been tagged, and I was able to track it down. It was tagged in Enid, Oklahoma, and I think it was 4 days before it had made it down to San Antonio. So of course I didn't tag him again, I just let him go. But the idea of being able to have this tactile experience with the creature, and also the hopeful possibility that we'll be discovered by someone else and connect you with that person, or that butterfly will make it all the way into Mexico and possibly be recovered on the forest floor and reported. That's kind of what really hit me and seduced me about monarch butterflies. So it's been going on now for, it's hard to believe, 15 years that I've been doing this, but it just never seems to get uninteresting. And that's sort of how I came about to where I am today. This was a big, I think this was 2008. We had so many butterflies one night, excuse me, that we couldn't tag them all, and it got dark. So we had a big cage. We put them all in the cage, took them back to the porch, and tagged them the next morning. So it's just super impressive, and I just find it really fun and interesting to engage in this activity. And I've recruited tons of people, and I've never invited anyone out that had the experience that was not changed by it. So for people, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the monarch migration, but just for a quick primer, the monarchs start, I don't know, can you guys see my pointer? Yes? I can't hear anybody. Well, I'm pointing down to Mexico, where it says winter in the blue dot, and that's where the monarchs start out in March, and they start flying north in search of milkweed. They typically will mate in Mexico or, you know, northern Mexico. And then of course the females fly north in search of milkweed. And that's what typically we do it in our part of the world, is we have a lot of antelope horns or zizotes milkweed. We have tropical milkweed and tuberosa in our gardens as well. So as they fly north into the spring, that first generation of monarch butterflies usually happens in South Texas, in our part of the world, as the females lay their eggs and then they hatch and they continue the journey north over the summer. And it takes about 4 or 5 generations for them to get all the way up to Canada in the summer. And then they start, typically around the equinox, which just happened September 21st, they get the cue from the sun that it's time to start heading back as the days get shorter. And scientists don't really know, you know, exactly how they find their way, but it's been a magical and sort of intriguing aspect of the insect for decades. So this is kind of, this is sort of what, oops, sorry, trying to move that out of the way. This is what started the, oops, sorry. This is what started sort of the advocacy that we're witnessing. If you see that big red arrow on the right for 2013, 2014, that is when the monarch butterfly population hit its low point in history. You can see back in 1997, it was up to 18.19 hectares. And the way that they measure the population is, it's very imperfect system, and it's been criticized a lot. They basically have people in the forest in Mexico where the monarchs roost, walk around and measure the space where there's a certain density of butterflies, which seems to be rather arbitrary. And then if they say, oh, wow, okay, this is like 2.5 hectares, and they add that to the tally, they report the total number of hectares, and then the current math is about, let's see, I wrote this down, 21 million butterflies per hectare. So like you can see here, 2.83, let's say it was 3, so 20 million, that's like 60 million butterflies we had about this year. And back in 1998, we had, you know, 19 times 20, so 380 million. So we've had a really tough decline. Scientists will tell you that the monarch population, all insect populations vacillate. You know, it's something that's up and down, and you know, you can expect extremes, a good year, a bad year, recovery. But the overall trend has been down, as you can see here. And so when this happened in 2013, 2014, this was right after the drought of 2011. You guys all remember the drought of 2011, and then we had 2012. And so that generation that got counted in 2013 was actually the one that was fueled by the drought, or not fueled by the drought. So that's kind of how we got here. And once that happened, that really got people concerned. And one organization filed a petition with the Department of the Interior to have the monarch listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. This happened in 2015, the same year that President Obama put out a national pollinator strategy, and the presidents of Mexico, the United States, and Canada got together and agreed that they were going to try to do something to save the monarch migration. So all of those things together, which occurred in 2015 right here, that's sort of what got us to the point of everybody kind of starting to pay attention to monarch butterflies. I mean, up until then, it was kind of it's still kind of a niche thing, but in 2015, it kind of turned the corner and became more of a mainstream concern. So San Antonio was kind of at the forefront of all of this frankly, because of me and a couple of people. That's Grace Barnett from the National Wildlife Federation, right there in the middle. That's, oops, sorry. That's, oh, I can't remember. Oh, that's Janice Bush on the left, who's a UTSA professor. And the National Wildlife Federation decided that they were going to do an initiative along the I-35 corridor to encourage cities to increase pollinator habitat in their city. And they called this the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. The Mayor's Monarch Pledge required a city to commit to do 3 of 24 things on a list. It could be anything from issue a city hall proclamation to you know, change the mowing schedules on the roads, to change their city code, landscaping ordinances, things like that. And so we worked closely with Mayor Ivy Taylor's office here in San Antonio to try and get the city to commit to the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. And it was really interesting because we it seemed like it took forever. We went and met with them and they kept putting us off. We were like, come on, man, it's only like 3 things. It's not that hard. And they kept postponing and postponing. We were like, what's going on? And we finally, they called us up and they said, you know what? We're going to do all 24 things. And so the National Wildlife Federation was flabbergasted because to participate, you had to do 3 things out of 24. To be in the, quote, leadership circle, you had to do 8 things. And they didn't consider or fathom that any city would do all 24 things. And one of the reasons that we were able to do that was because the San Antonio River Authority had been working on the museum reach and the mission reach, and a lot of the things that they asked the cities to do, we'd already done. We'd done 18 of the things, so we really only had 6 more to do. In any event, they scrambled around and they had to come up with a new category. And of course, the city wanted to be the monarch capital of the United States. And then the National Wildlife Federation wisely said, well, what if another city comes along and they do it? We can't have 2 capitals. So they decided to call it a monarch champion city. So San Antonio became the first monarch champion city in December of 2015. It was a pretty cool thing. And of those things that we committed to do, number 17 was to host a Monarch Butterfly Festival. So that's sort of how we got to the festival. And since I worked really hard on getting this pledge committed to, I felt like, well, we said we'd do this, so let's do it. So that was in December. In January, I started asking around, and my friend Ramiro Cavazos at the Hispanic Chamber, who was officing at the Pearl, I was talking to him, and I was like, hey, man, we need to do a butterfly festival. He was like, okay, let's do it. I was like, okay, cool. So he introduced me to the folks at the Pearl. We laid it out for them. We didn't really know what we were going to do, but they loved the idea. They were very supportive. And that first year, we just did sort of an ad hoc thing, all volunteer, still is pretty much. You can see that wagon has some laundry hampers in it, and in those laundry hampers, we had a couple hundred butterflies that we opened the hampers out and shook the butterflies out. People took photos. We had a little bit of music. All the little girls came with their wings on and danced around. We had a little bit of music. So we also did a climate change forum with Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, who's one of the top climate change experts in the country. And we kind of started to think about making it more, not just a festival at the Pearl, but some sort of an educational initiative that we would educate people about pollinators. So then in 2017 and 18, we continued the festival, and we had a climate change forum. We did entomophagy, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically the eating of insects as food. Kids love this. You can eat like crickets, and have cricket meal pancakes and ant bread and all this fun stuff. We work with the Witty on that. We always do a teacher training workshop where we bring teachers in and teach them how to use monarch butterflies in the classroom as a teaching tool. And we also had this butterfly pyramid designed where we could release the butterflies from the pyramid. But the main focus of the event was to do one-on-one butterfly tagging demos, as I mentioned earlier. And so we would have docents mill around this big crowd and say, hey, kids, want to come see? Want to learn how to tag a monarch butterfly? And the kids would come and they'd tag a monarch butterfly, and then we would record the data and report it to Monarch Watch. And we've actually had, of all the butterflies released from our festivals, we've had 8 recovered in Mexico. And it's pretty exciting when you get the news that your butterfly was found, and then you can call the person up and say, hey, little Mary Smith or whatever, your butterfly made it. And it's a life-changing experience for certain people. So this continued for 2017 and 2018. Also in 2018, that's when we launched the 300 for 300 San Antonio Tricentennial Pollinator Gardening Initiative. And it was funny how that worked out, because the National Wildlife Federation, when you take that pledge, they come every year and they check on you to say, okay, you committed to do all these things. Where are you? Are you doing everything? And so one of the things that we had not yet done was number 13, to create a monarch neighborhood challenge to engage neighborhoods and homeowners associations in creating pollinator habitat. So the mayor's office asked me if I could come up with something, and everybody was doing tricentennial stuff. And I was like, well, okay, how about if we do 300 pollinator gardens for San Antonio's 300th birthday? And so that's what we did. And we thought, well, let's do 30 gardens per city council district. That'll be 3 times 10, 300. That's doable, right? And so that really allowed us to kind of approach it in a way that was, not daunting for people. And in the course of that, I believe 2018, we had an election and we had to get Mayor Nuremberg to re-sign the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. And this was apparently a first also with the National Wildlife Federation, where one mayor took the pledge and then another mayor came on board. And it's like, what do you do about that? And Mayor Ron was all on board, and Phil Hardberger as well. And I don't know if you guys can see them through the faint transparency of that picture. But in any case, by 2019, we hit our goal. I think we ended up with like 324 gardens, and I believe the slide is outdated because
I don't want him to see me.
I'm sorry? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Okay. I'm gonna keep
Yes,
going.
we can.
Okay. So 2019, when we overshot our goal, we decided to open it up beyond San Antonio because we had a lot of people, oh, I live in Dallas, can I participate? And we kind of have a theme of, butterflies without borders. So we said, okay, fine, let's do 500 gardens by 2020. So last year we shot for 500, and I think today we're at 570. I need to update this slide. But if any of you have a pollinator habitat and you'd like to register, you can go to our website and go to Pollinator Gardening Initiative, and we have a map up there, and you have a quick form. It takes literally like 30 seconds to fill it out. You can put your name, your address. It won't show your address, but it'll put a pin on the map showing where your pollinator garden is. So we continued last year, 2019, we had, we kind of expanded beyond butterflies, and we had Rodrigo Medellin, the Batman of Mexico, come in and talk about bats as pollinators and how they make mezcal and tequila happen. We had a waggle dance, which is a dance that bees do that we had choreographed and performed at the Pearl. Climate Change Forum. We had 16 events, and so the festival continues to expand. It just seems like it's very well received in the community. Everybody seems to love it. We always have a parade where the kids dress up with their wings on, and they march to the Pearl on the final day of the event, and then we do the Monarch tagging demos with the kids. And we kind of did away with the spectacle release last year and just focused on the citizen science of the kids learning how to tag. And nobody really seemed to notice because that was so, I don't know why this thing keeps advancing, sorry. You have to get people's attention, and monarchs do that, but then once you get them in the door, you can really start to educate people and make them appreciate the incredible amount of ecosystem services that all these pollinators provide for us. So we figured that since 2016, we did the math because we've been kind of tracking this, more than 20,000 people have attended our festival. And so this was going to be our 5th birthday, and we're very excited to plan 2020, given all the hype about 2020 being a life-changing year, which indeed it has been. So we started the year out with all these incredible plans, with workshops and speakers flying in and VIP dinners and renting out the Pearl Stable and all these good things. But hold that thought. I did want to mention that our festival is so appropriate for where we live in San Antonio, because as you can see, and I said earlier, we're in the heart of the flyway of not just monarch butterflies, but all migratory creatures fly through this area to get to their southern climes and up in the north in the summer when it gets super hot. So I've had people approach me about doing this festival elsewhere, and honestly, I just don't think you could do a festival anywhere, but I don't think it would be as resonant as it is in our city, given that we are in the Texas funnel. As you guys may know, we like to plant milkweed in the spring for the monarchs because when they're moving north, they're breeding and they need to look for milkweed. You guys know that this is antelope horns milkweed right here. That's the most common one that I see in my travels. I know there's lots of other ones. I think there's like 140 species here in the US or more. And then, of course, in the fall, nectar plants, and that's frostweed, one of my favorite plants. It's on my backdrop here. I probably took that picture right where you're looking. So the other thing that's really resonant about San Antonio is that in 2017, we were declared one of 2 creative cities of gastronomy in the country by the World Heritage Foundation. And Tucson is the only other city that does that. And so there's a huge history of food culture in San Antonio. And so one of the things that we really wanted to tap into was, how does the food get on the plate? Like, did you know that if we didn't have bumblebees, we would have salsa? And what kind of a city would we be if we didn't have salsa? Because bumblebees pollinate tomatoes and peppers. It's not pollinated by regular honeybees. The form of the flower is too large, and you need that big honey bumblebee body to make sure that the pollen falls properly. So we also have this amazing and unique relationship with Mexico. And so I just wanted to kind of back up a second and point out that our mission of our festival is conservation of insect pollinators and how they make one of every 3 bites of our food possible, and trying to educate and enlighten people about how that food or that gets on the plate or how that drink gets in the bottle, and also to celebrate this unique connection to Mexico. We're the Monarch Champion City. We're a creative city of gastronomy, and we have the one of 8 Centro Cultural de Mexico Mexican cultural centers in the country. So we have a lot of really incredible resources and connections that we can tap into for the festival, and to use the Monarch as a sort of lens through which to look at very complex issues. So we're planning our festival for 2020, March 2020. The Monarchs are just starting to arrive in San Antonio, and just as they're arriving in San Antonio, so is COVID-19. We had our first COVID death on March 21st, Doris Wallace. She was 84 years old. She was a beloved dressmaker, apparently. There was a beautiful tribute to her in the San Antonio Express News that when I read it, I was just so moved that when we were planning our festival and trying to figure out what to do in this context where we can't gather and we can't tag monarch butterflies with people, we decided, of course, we have to go online. And so that's what we're doing this year. And one of the big features of our festival this year is to tag monarch butterflies in the names of people who passed away. Because one of the things that's happening is people are dying, and we don't have the tools to mourn properly as we've had in the past because of the virus, because of the pandemic. So this is an example of a data sheet, and actually I left a 0 out here. That should be 4 zeros. But this butterfly, ACLN000, tagged on September 6th, was a male. It was reared. This is Wilder reared. It was done in San Antonio. And we're going to add a column to this sheet that we're going to honor in honor of Doris Wallace. It can be in honor of anyone who's passed away this year. We have been talking a lot about victims of COVID, but it can be anything. It could be social injustice. It can be someone who died of cancer. It could be someone who passed away of natural causes. But we feel like it's just really important to honor these people in a way when we're watching this sort of horse race of numbers of deaths in our community, where we're at 800, we're at 900, we just passed 1,000. It's just difficult to process when each of those people who died, represented by a number, have families and loved ones who are going to miss them so much. So this is just our small gesture of hope and healing that we're going to be doing for the community. One of the things we're doing, and we're not encouraging a crowd to come, we're going to be filming everything. We'll be staging an altar at Confluence Park the weekend of the 20th. And we'll be doing some butterfly releases there and distributing free altar kits to the first 50 people who filled out a form that we've created to report the death of people. And I'm going to share that link later. If you have someone you'd like to honor with a butterfly release, we would love to do that for you. And there's no cost. We're tagging the butterflies anyway. And if that butterfly gets recovered in Mexico, we will let you know, and I cannot imagine how that could not be some sort of hopeful sign about how the life cycle continues. This piece of art will be what's on the altar kits that we're distributing, and it was done by local artist Jose Sotelo. So our festival is online all month, October 1st to the 29th. Oh, I gotta type. It's through the 29th. Sorry about that. I love this photo. This is the joyous expression that we get from kids when we tag monarch butterflies with them and show them how it works, and they get to hold the butterfly and let it go. We started out distributing on October 1st, I think 25 caterpillar condominiums. We call these caterpillar condos. It's a milkweed plant with a caterpillar on it. You get a pop-up cage, and then you get a tag. And Ashley Bird, my very able collaborator and the festival manager, has developed a curriculum for second graders that explains the entire life cycle of the monarch butterfly to take a load off teachers, because teachers right now are really stressed out. They've got a lot on their plate. And for them to be able to have this hands-on experience that they can use in a Zoom or in person, along with curriculum that has already been developed with lessons and handouts and all that good stuff, we feel like that's a great contribution to take a load off these hardworking teachers. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we got Doug Tallamy this Thursday. This is kind of our big deal. New York Times bestselling author. I don't know if you guys have read the book, but I was very impressed with the notion of the homegrown national park, suggestion that Tallamy makes to everyone in the world, in the United States, to convert half of their space, of their outdoor space, your yard, your landscape, your ranch, your farm, whatever, to native plants. And if we would just do that, it would solve so many problems. So I invite you all to join us on Thursday if you'd like to come and register. It's free. It'll be on Zoom. I think we're going to do it on Facebook Live also, but there's no charge. And Doug's going to talk about San Antonio specific stuff like our SAWS Water Saver Coupon Program. I had a conversation with him. He's very impressed with our water utility. We have a really amazing conservation-minded water utility here in San Antonio, and he was very impressed with what they're doing. He's going to talk about that and some other San Antonio specific recommendations. There's a wonderful movie that we're screening this month called Paddling Lessons that was made by Stephen Shower and a bunch of his friends at the San Antonio River Authority, and they basically they leave Brackenridge Park here in San Antonio, and they kayak to the coast, 260 miles, and they document this whole thing in this video. This, I think, is about 50 minutes, and it's just a lot of fun. Especially we were during the pandemic when we were locked up and you couldn't go outside. Like you need a break. You want to be out in nature, and maybe you can't get in your kayak. But this is a wonderful outlet to be able to do that. And again, streaming free all month long at TexasButterflyRanch.com. On October 15th, we're going to have, and we're basically every Thursday in October, we have an event. And so this is our event with Danielle Bellany. She's a co-founder of Black Birders Week. And she's going to talk about birds as pollinators, not only in how they pollinate through moving pollen around, but also as seed dispersers and how they create new plants by spreading seeds around the world. Danielle is from, I believe, Helotes, and she'll be joining us on Zoom on the 15th. We're also going to have, I believe there's some free birding books that are going to be distributed to people, and lots of different giveaways and incentives for people to participate. So I strongly recommend you check that out on our website coming up on the 15th of October. And then on October 22nd, we have Rodrigo coming back. He was such a hit last year. People just fell in love with this guy. He is super charismatic, very accessible, went to school here in the United States, speaks perfect English, but he's basically credited with saving the tequila bat. The tequila bat is the bat that pollinates agave, which is the plant from which we get tequila. And so, people don't care about insects, but when they realize that it wasn't for the insects, you wouldn't have tequila, then they start to kind of perk up and pay attention. And Rodrigo makes a very strong case for bats. He also will talk about how, I don't know if you guys remember in March when COVID first hit, and we were trying to figure out where it came from, and these, wet markets in China and all of this, people were blaming bats for coronavirus. And Rodrigo is adamantly, going to explain to you how that is absolutely not true. People were going in March and early spring and going to bat caves and burning the bat caves because they thought the bats caused coronavirus, and that's not what happened. And he will very much make that clear in this presentation on October 22nd, which is a Thursday. Also that evening, we're going to have a special visit from Johnny Gabriel, not Johnny Gabriel, I can't remember his name. The guy that started, I'm having a brain fade here, La Gloria here in San Antonio, the chef, Johnny Hernandez, I'm sorry. And he's going to show us how to make a mezcal cocktail, a pollinator-friendly cocktail. And there actually will be cocktail kits available if people want to go pick up a kit and then learn how to make the drink, and they can toast the bats at the end. We're going to be toasting the bats at the end of this presentation with Rodrigo, either a shot of tequila, a mezcal, or your drink of your choice, to just toast how important these creatures are to the ecosystem. Then on October 23rd, which is a Friday night, we're kind of making this sort of a date night where you can grab a date, sit down. If you want to get a meal kit from Farm Table, which is a restaurant here in San Antonio, very much into very healthy food. And Elizabeth Johnson is all about, being kind to the earth and kind to yourself, a very healthy diet, really knows her stuff. She's going to present a meal that is based on honey with all kinds of honey tweaks and ingredients and honey-inspired menu, while Cecile Parrish, who's a master beekeeper of San Antonio's Ecocentro, is going to talk to us about how the honey happens. How does the food get on the plate? And I think this is really important that we start to understand this and communicate to our children about how does food happen. You don't just go to H-E-B and grab the plastic container with the Brussels sprouts in it. It takes a process, a natural process, to get that food to happen. And I think this is our first gesture in this direction of how the food gets on the plate, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. If you'd like to join us for that, again, it's all free. You can join us on Friday, October 23rd at 6:30. And then the finale of our month, which in the previous incarnations of our festival, we had all these events, and the last day of the festival would be at the Pearl with this big live event with thousands of people. We can't do that this year. So we were like, well, what should we do? So we're making a movie. We're basically making a documentary of this crazy, insane year that we've all gone through. The title of it is 2020 A Metamorphosis, because I believe, and I know a lot of people believe that this is a year that will change our lives. It's not going to be the same going forward. We've had a lot of crazy change in this year. We've all adapted quickly. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to do that through the lens of the monarch migration, because I do think there's a lot of corollaries and lessons we can learn by looking at the monarch, at their resilience, tenacity, and ability to kind of flit and turn no matter what comes their way. We can all learn from that. So just in closing, before we take some questions, I wanted to once again mention, if you would like to honor a loved one who died, you can go to TexasButterflyRanch.com, and there's a form on the front page that you can just click on, and it takes you to a Google Doc. You can just fill out the name and anything you'd like to say about the person. If you'd like to contribute a photo, excuse me, I'm gonna get a drink of water. If you'd like to contribute a photo that we can use at our altar that will go at Confluence Park, we'll be filming all of that, and it's going to be part of the movie. And if you'd like to say the person's name out loud in an audio clip, we're going to include that in the movie as audio. Again, I said earlier that we need to say these people's names and recognize these people are not just numbers on a report that we get every day about how many folks have passed. We're happy to tag a butterfly in the name of someone you loved who you've lost. So just go to the form and fill it out, and we'll take care of it. And if your butterfly makes it to Mexico, we'll let you know. So I hope that you'll all join us at TexasButterflyRanch.com all month. Everything's free. Hope to see you there. Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to take some questions.
We do have one question
Okay.
about where do we get the kits that you mentioned? And that's from Patricia Lucas.
Well, the kits are not something we're selling right now. We created them for schools. We're not selling them. It's just something we kind of came up with this year as a response to the pandemic. But it's something that we're thinking about, and you can definitely go make one for yourself. You have milkweed, and you can go find a monarch egg. There's no reason why. Should I get out of here, or why does it keep switching me out? Oh, stop share. I'm going to stop the share, right? Okay, good. There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we're not selling them. It's not like we're selling them, but it's something to think about in the future. It's a complicated thing because it's a live plant as well as a live creature, and there's a lot of very specific instructions that go with it. And we've only done it as an educational outreach tool for teachers for Title I second grade schools at this point, but definitely going to consider that going forward.
Any other questions? Okay, so from Barbara Baruch, is every activity that you mentioned listed on your website, TexasButterflyRanch.com?
Yeah, everything's up there. If you go to TexasButterflyRanch.com, there's a festival tab. Just click on the festival tab, and there's there's about 15 or 20 events now. The events that I talked about, those are just our official events. But there's other events like San Antonio Native Plant Society is having their native plant sale right now too. If I had known about your plant sale, we could have put it up there. We invited nonprofit partners that we've worked with in the past, if they had any sort of mission-aligned event that was occurring in October, to let us know about it, and if it was appropriate, we would put it up on the website. And then we had our own events, which are every Thursday in October, including also with that Friday. So yeah, just go look, you'll see it up there, and there's registration links on everything. We'll be writing about some of the events going forward, just to promote them and give people more information as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, that was a great presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll try and get the recording up on our website so people will be able to see what you presented to us today.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you guys having me, and please join us. Hope to see you there.
Thank you so much, Monica. That was a wonderful presentation.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share the information.